So I've never really posted anything like this before, but I feel like I need to share what happened last month. I work at an Amazon warehouse, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that went down. It's just so unreal. But anyway, here it goes. I work the night shift at this Amazon fulfillment center in the middle of nowhere. It's a pretty boring job, just scanning and packing items, but it pays the bills. Our shifts run from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m., and honestly, the only thing that keeps me going is the thought of getting out of there at the end of the night. There's usually about 20 of us on shift, and everyone kind of keeps to themselves, just trying to get through the night. So, this all started on a Friday night, which was weirdly quiet. Normally we'd have a lot of orders coming in, but for some reason it was slower than usual. I was working alongside my buddy Steve. We started at Amazon around the same time, so we've gotten pretty close over the past year. Steve's a chill guy, always cracking jokes to keep the mood light, especially during these long, dragging shifts. It was around midnight when things got strange. I noticed this guy walking around the warehouse that I hadn't seen before. Now, our warehouse is huge, and it's not uncommon to see new faces since we have a lot of temps coming in and out. But this guy didn't look like he was there to work. He was just wandering around, not even in the Amazon uniform, wearing this dark hoodie with the hood up, which was odd because it was pretty warm in there. I pointed him out to Steve, and he shrugged, saying he'd probably just gotten lost. But something about the guy gave me the creeps. He kept looking around like he was searching for something or someone. At one point, he looked directly at me, and I swear his eyes were just off, like there was something really unsettling about them. We went back to work, trying to ignore him. But every time I looked up, he seemed to be closer. And then, around 1 a.m., Steve told me he was going to take a quick break and head to the restroom. I told him I'd cover for him, and he walked off, leaving me alone in our aisle. About 10 minutes later, I realized Steve hadn't come back. It was weird because our breaks are usually just 5 minutes, especially since the restroom isn't that far. I decided to go check on him, thinking maybe he wasn't feeling well or something. As I was walking towards the restroom, I saw the weird guy again. This time, he was standing near the break room door, just staring at it. I slowed down, wondering what his deal was, but he didn't move. I walked past him, trying not to make eye contact, and went into the restroom. It was empty. Steve wasn't there. I called out his name, but no answer. Starting to feel a bit uneasy, I went to the break room, thinking maybe Steve had gone there instead. But it was empty too. Now I was really starting to worry. I grabbed my phone and texted him, but got no reply. I asked a couple of other coworkers if they'd seen him, but no one had. I decided to check the security office. We have cameras all over the warehouse, so I figured maybe they'd seen where he went. When I got there, the security guard on duty, Mark, seemed pretty bored, but he agreed to check the footage for me. We rewound the footage to when Steve went to the restroom. There he was, walking in. But then, after a couple of minutes, the camera near the restroom door showed that weird guy following him in. I felt a chill run down my spine. The guy stayed in there for about 5 minutes, then came out alone, looking around before heading out of view of the camera. Steve never came out. I was freaking out at this point. We called the night manager, and he called the police. They came pretty quickly, considering our remote location, and started their investigation. They reviewed the footage, took statements, and searched the entire warehouse, but there was no sign of Steve or the weird guy. The cops found Steve's phone in the restroom, but that was it. It was like he just vanished. The next few days were a blur of police interviews and sleepless nights. They questioned all of us, but no one knew anything. The guy in the hoodie was never seen again. It's been a month now, and Steve still hasn't been found. They have no leads, no suspects. It's like he just disappeared into thin air. I can't stop thinking about it. I keep replaying that night in my head, wondering if there was something I could have done differently. I keep hoping he'll just walk back into the warehouse one night, grinning and cracking jokes like nothing happened. But deep down, I know that's not going to happen. I don't know what that guy wanted or why he took Steve. But if you're reading this, watch your back. You never know who's lurking around, even in the places you think are safe. I've never posted anything like this before, but I can't keep this to myself anymore. It happened a few months ago, and I'm still trying to process it. I work at my parents' supermarket, and something happened that night that I'll never forget. Our supermarket is pretty small and located in a quiet neighborhood. We usually close by 10 p.m., but that night, my parents had to leave early for a family emergency, so I stayed behind to finish up some inventory and clean up. It was almost midnight when I finally decided to lock up. I was just finishing mopping the floor when I saw headlights through the front windows. It was odd because we never get customers this late. The car parked and two guys got out. They both looked rough, like they hadn't slept in days. One was tall and skinny, the other shorter and more muscular. They wore old, dirty clothes and had this weird, jittery energy about them. I was immediately on edge. We were closed and I wasn't sure if I should let them in. But before I could decide, the taller guy started banging on the door, shouting that they needed to buy something urgently. I hesitated, but figured it might be better to let them in and get them out quickly. As soon as I unlocked the door, they pushed past me and started wandering around the store. I tried to stay calm and asked them what they needed. They ignored me and split up, each going down different aisles. This made me even more nervous. I couldn't keep an eye on both of them at once. The shorter guy went to the back of the store near the storage room, while the taller one stayed near the front, pretending to look at the shelves. I kept asking if they needed help, but they kept ignoring me. After a few minutes, the taller guy suddenly asked if we sold any phone chargers. I pointed to the electronics section, and he walked over, still acting weird. I decided to follow the shorter guy, who was now in the storage area where we keep the more expensive items. As I walked back there, I noticed he was trying to open the storage room door. I told him that area was off limits, and he just stared at me with this unsettling grin. Then, everything happened so fast. The taller guy came up behind me and grabbed me by the neck, shoving me into the storage room with the shorter guy following. They forced me to the ground, demanding money and the keys to the safe. I was terrified. I told them I didn't have access to the safe, that only my parents did, but they didn't believe me. The shorter guy started rummaging through the storage room, knocking over boxes and looking for anything valuable. Meanwhile, the taller guy kept a tight grip on me, making it hard to breathe. I could hear my heart pounding in my ears. Suddenly, the shorter guy yelled that he found something. He pulled out a box of electronics that we had just received. They both seemed satisfied with that for a moment, but then the taller guy turned his attention back to me. He looked at his friend and said, "What do we do with him now?" I knew I had to get out of there. They were distracted for a split second, so I took the chance to elbow the taller guy in the stomach and ran towards the door. The shorter guy tried to grab me, but I managed to dodge him and sprint towards the front of the store. I could hear them yelling behind me, but I didn't look back. I ran into the small office near the front and locked the door behind me. I grabbed my phone and called the police, whispering as I explained what was happening. I could hear the guys pounding on the office door, shouting all kinds of threats. The police said they were on their way, but it felt like hours before I heard the sirens. The guys must have heard them too, because the banging stopped and everything went silent. I stayed hidden under the desk, holding my breath, until the police arrived and stormed the store. They didn't find the guys. The police think they ran out the back when they heard the sirens. They took the electronics and some cash from the register, but I was just glad to be alive. I still have nightmares about that night. Every time I hear a car pull up late at night, my heart races. I don't think I'll ever feel completely safe working there again. My parents upgraded the security system and put in more cameras, but it doesn't change what happened. I had to hide for my life, and I'll never forget that feeling.